All right, good morning, everybody. We are going to get rolling. Today, we're going to take a look at working in lesson 7. You'll notice we're skipping lesson 6 for right now. The main reason is I want to jump us into the pen tool sooner rather than later. The big idea behind that is so that once we're rolling with the pen tool, that you'll have some more time to practice with it. Today is kind of one of the bigger lessons that we'll take a look at over the course of the semester. The pen tool is kind of the creative core of Illustrator. It really is going to let you, so far we've done a lot of stuff with kind of using just stock shapes and customizing them. The pen tool is going to let you create completely custom everything. So really, it's kind of the thing where with real graphic designers, the pretenders versus the real designers are the ones that really master pen tool and really are great with it. The main reason I like to spend a lot of time on this is that it's super helpful, obviously, to just have this as a skill set, but this translates really well. There's pen tool is a usable option in Photoshop. It's something that you can use in InDesign. It's just something that's got a ton of flexibility in terms of the different Adobe programs. But also it's just really helpful because it's going to let you create custom work. So what we're going to take a look at today is walking through lesson 7. So there's 2 files. We'll take a look at those in just a second. There's a practice file that'll kind of warm us up to different ways you can use the tool. You can almost think of the pen tool as like a connect the dots kind of tool. It's just a little bit more elaborate than that. And then we're going to take a look at what the pen tool practice is going to be. There's all this stuff up on Blackboard. So let me get my screen shared out to you guys. As we're going through this, if you have questions on how I'm doing anything, please stop me, let me know, whether you're gonna throw something in the chat or just shout it out. Let me know if you want to see anything again. There's a couple steps that I'll definitely repeat. The big part about what you're gonna be working on today is that there are gonna be some keyboard modifiers. So as we're clicking and holding the mouse down, we'll be holding Shift, Control, Option. Obviously, if you're working on a PC, you can reference the book for the different shortcuts for PC. I can't remember those off the top of my head because I've just worked off Mac my entire life, but the modifier keys are still there and some of them are the same. So let me get my screen shared out to you so you can see where we're at with Blackboard and we'll get rolling here. All right, so make sure you guys see this. Yep, okay. So first thing I want to take a look at is, before we get too far in the announcements, I have everything posted from the past couple of weeks, all the lessons, the lesson videos, all that stuff. So if you do have any questions, you can always check back in here, and all the video links will be on that announcements page. That's where today's will be after we're done. If you click on weekly assignments, that's where we're at right now. Make sure you're seeing how I'm seeing. So we're on lesson 7. A couple files we're going to be working with. This first one is a video. This is just kind of a quick review of the steps that we're going to take a look at today. So if you do want to just a quick reference to it and you don't want to rewatch the whole video, this is a great resource. Here's a lesson 7 start file, so I'm going to make sure I download those things right away. I have them in a zip file for you, and they're going to go right in my downloads. Pull that out. And what we're looking at is this. So there's a practice file, and that's what we're going to start off with. Notice that this is an Illustrator file. It almost acts like a PDF, how I can zip through. So we're going to take a look at kind of different ways of drawing. So I'm going to pull that file open. The second thing we're going to do, it looks like that swan. You saw that when I had the board open earlier. So I'm going to pull this thing open. That's going to be the first thing we're going to take a look at. And then once we're done with our start file, we have a pen tool tracing practice thing that we're going to do. Generally, a good way to get good at working with the pen tool is just by tracing stuff and kind of getting a sense of going from straight lines to curved lines, converting lines, all that different stuff. So that's what we're going to be taking a look at as we go today. Now, first thing I want to take a look at is on my practice file. Full screen this for you guys. Also, make sure I can see the chat window. Sorry about that. Okay. All right, so as we're working on these things, notice you got 6 different artboards here. We're going to kind of walk through these one at a time. Now, before we get into the specifics of what each of these kind of types does, what I want to take a look at is working with the pen tool and kind of the big pieces for it. So if you're not familiar, this is the pen tool right here. If you're working on Essentials Classic, left-hand side of the toolbar, 3rd tool down, you click and hold on it, you'll see there's a pen tool. There's a couple other options for adding or deleting anchor points, and then there's this anchor point tool. Actually, never go to this anchor point tool. You're going to see there's a keyboard modifier we can do. So if you just press down a key while you're using the pen tool, it'll just jump right into that. So it kind of is a fast way of working. So the pen tool is going to be really important. And then obviously the selection tool to select our art, and the direct select tool. I feel like direct select and pen tool go hand in hand. Never think about working with the pen tool as like nailing it the first time. You just want to get in the ballpark, and then that direct select tool is going to be what you'll use to fine tune your art. So far so good? Making sense? Any questions on anything? Cool. All right, so what I want to do is I'm going to start, and again, this is just kind of like a connect the dots operation. So you can see this is built so that there's 1, 2, 3, 4. We're just going to kind of follow these dots as we go along. And as we're doing that, I want to kind of make sure that I'm clicking right to the middle of these points. And again, I'm not holding any keyboard modifiers. So I'm going to click once, and I click, and it almost shows me like a track. And I can click on 2 to 3, 4. And again, it's just kind of a connect the dots operation. Now, one thing you'll notice is that when I get to point 7, first of all, it looks like a chunk of this is cut out. So I'm noticing that as I'm drawing, I can pay attention to my fill and my stroke. So that's something I want to take a look at. The other thing too is that when I'm done, it wants to create a completed path. So if I come over here, you see how my icon has that little circle next to it on my pen tool? So I want to make sure that whenever I'm drawing something, I start and I finish at the exact same point. I want to make sure that I can go in, click on that point, and then connect all those pieces together. Now, as I'm drawing right now, I have my fill color set to white and my stroke set to black. That's fine, but it's maybe not the best because as I start drawing things, it's going to start disappearing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset this. I'm going to set my fill color to none. And my stroke, I'm going to set just kind of like a bright, usually like a bright pink, bright purple, something like that, just so that it really pops off against the background so that as I'm drawing, I can see it. And now once I'm done with my art, if something doesn't look right, so say that I zoom in and I don't like where my positioning is on any of my points, again, it's not perfect, but it doesn't have to be, because now I can grab my direct select tool, come in, kind of fine tune it. Now it looks like it's sitting much more kind of evenly in the center of the path. Now again, these don't have to be perfect, don't worry about that. I just want you guys to get the concept of when you're done drawing that you can modify these things. You'll also notice that sometimes these things kind of like snap in position. They don't want to like go exactly you want them. Remember, if you go underneath your view, you can turn the snapping off. So go to view, and then if I turn off like snap to point, grid, pixel, if you turn all that snapping off, it'll let you free transform a little bit more evenly. I've also noticed too, like if you pull way off and then come back, it gives you a little bit more latitude. The more zoomed in you are on something, the more you can fine tune positioning once you have it. So far so good, that making sense? All right, so I'm gonna go into my art. That's work. All right, well then let's just do the old-fashioned double click on the hand and zoom out, and I'll just slide over to the next one. So now we've seen that with straight lines, you're not holding any keyboard modifiers, you're just clicking and kind of connecting the dots. So on the second one, it's basically the same idea here. So let me grab my pen tool. You can see that it's preloaded. My fill is set to none, my stroke is set to purple. I can even turn my stroke thickness a little bit if I wanted. And again, I'm going to follow those same steps. I'm just going to click and kind of connect the dots from one to the next. I'm kind of following right along the middle of that line, going in sequence. And then when I get to that endpoint, I want to make sure I connect these to make a completed path. And then if anything needs to be adjusted, like I was a little off on here, I can pull it away and then reset it. And I'm spot on. Now, next thing we're going to take a look at is adding curves to points. So this is going to act a little bit differently. Instead of just clicking once, if you want to add a curve to anything, what you're going to need to do is instead of clicking just from point to point, you're actually clicking your mouse down and drag. So whenever you see these on these little practice files with an arrow and a dot, what basically they're saying here is, I'm going to click, but instead of letting go, I'm going to hold my mouse down, and when I pull away, it gives me these little handlebars. I almost think of these things as like a bike, like the handlebars on a bike. The more they turn, the harder you're going to turn. Same thing with these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and pull up, and I'm going to snap it right to this little point here. And now when I pull away, remember before when I was going, it was kind of giving me a preview of what my line would look like. Well, now my preview's got a curve to it. So if I go to point 2, you'll see it's not a perfect curve, but the first part, that first point is going in one direction. So if I click and hold on the second one, I can pull and it does the same thing. So here I'm going to click away. Now if these things aren't right, I can grab these handlebars and I can adjust by pulling up or down on the handlebars, and the points are fine. It's just these handlebars are going to control the amount of curve here. Quickly deselect. Let me try a couple of these practice ones here. So again, I'm going to click and drag up a little bit, and now it gives me that starting curve. Now I know I can click and drag down. And I was kind of off on this, but that's fine. I'll come to my direct select tool, grab that point, reset it, and then pull my handlebar down a little bit. And remember, I have two handlebars. Each one controls a different side of that curve. So let's try that one more time, see if I can get a little bit closer this time. Go up here, go to the point here. Not too shabby. All right, now, same basic idea. The only difference is on this one now, I'm going to go from left to right instead of top to bottom. But here, I'll click in this direction. Here, I'll click in this direction. And if I'm a little off, it's no big deal. I can grab that direct select tool. Maybe I need to pull this one down a little bit. And that's pretty good, just like that. So that's the idea of adding a curve. So we saw straight lines are just clicking, curved lines are clicking and holding. So now we've seen straight and curve. Now let's try to connect these together. What you're seeing here, this is called a Bezier curve. So what this does is each pull, each line is going to connect and pull it in a different direction. So really, like those little handlebars, it's going to follow from one point to the next to kind of connect that whole line through. So just like you see up here, I'm going to click and drag up and click and drag down. So I'm just constantly going back and forth from point to point and going here. Now, the nice part about working with these is that they tell you exactly where to drag to. This is very like training wheel stuff. That's not going to be there when you guys do your tracing stuff. So it's really the big idea is getting an idea or a handle on how when you click on these points, you can adjust them individually, but also how they flow from one to the next. So like if I click on this anchor point here, if I move this one, notice how it affects the other one in the other direction. So here, as I'm doing that, I can kind of pay attention as I'm scrolling through to see how one point connects to the other. So now that I did it with handlebars, let's try it without. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag up, and I'll just try and connect this thing. And I'm just going up and down, and I'm going to try and get it as close as possible. Again, don't worry about it being perfect on the first shot through. You just want to get it in the ballpark. Once you have the basic shape, then you can come in, you can fine tune these handlebars, you can kind of make those adjustments. So here, like if one's a lot higher, I try to make them about the same height. That usually gives me a nice even curve. Same thing here, if I click on the anchor, I can kind of slide this over. You guys might have noticed as I was going, if I hover over a path, notice how when I hover it, see how my icon changes? I can actually click on the path, and this is new, this path tool. I can actually click and I can kind of fine tune it just like that by grabbing it, and it'll actually let me work with both anchor points at the same time. So sometimes that's a little bit easier in terms of getting it exactly where you want it by clicking right on the line, not on the point or not on the anchor. That makes sense? So far, so good? All right, well, let's take a look at doing some conversion stuff. Now, like I mentioned earlier, we're gonna need some keyboard modifiers for some of this stuff. Thankfully, they're put in right here. What we're gonna do is we're gonna follow that same thing, but instead of having this kind of smooth flowing line, we're gonna have these kind of converted points. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this Option key on the Mac. If you're working off a Windows machine, you can use the Alt key. What we're gonna do is we're gonna actually reset that point. So what I'm gonna do is start with my pen tool. I'm gonna click and drag up. I'm going to come back to point 2 and drag down just like I would before, but now what I want to do is I want to convert this point. So now when I hold my Option key, remember how I talked about that different tool before, how it could convert from one to the other? Well, I'm going to convert this thing, and I'm going to click on that little handle and swing it back up here. So now notice that the new direction, it's almost kind of like sharp points or teeth. So now I'm just clicking and dragging down, holding my Option key, clicking and dragging just the handlebar point up, and resetting it down. And then if anything's off, I can go in and I can fine tune. So maybe I want to adjust that a little bit. Maybe I can swing this over a little, just some fine tuning stuff. So let me try that again one more time without my training wheels. I'm going to click and drag up. I'm going to click and drag down. I have my basic shape, but remember I want to convert this point. I don't want it to flow this way. I want it to flow almost like an arc. So I'm going to Option click and swing that handlebar back. Drag down, Option click, drag down, Option click, drag down, click, hold my Option key down. And now that gives me the shape I'm looking for. And if I'm a little off, that's no big deal. I can just kind of grab these handlebars and kind of snap things back a little bit or adjust them a little at a time, kind of get me a little bit closer. Does that make sense as far as converting points? So instead of going from a flowy way by just clicking and dragging the whole time, this is where I'm holding that Option key to convert those points back. Again, the steps and the modifier keys are all right there on the directions too. So I think sometimes it's just easier to see somebody kind of walk through it first. Awesome. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of connect all these pieces together. We're gonna do curved lines, straight lines, and convert lines, all kind of in one run here. So if you take a look, it's gonna see how like, I have a normal curve. I'm gonna need to do some converting points. So let's start from the start. I'll drag up and I'll just kind of hit this one point at a time. Now I'll come to point 2, and this looks good. Now the problem is I have this curve. Well, now I'm going to convert this point. So what I can do is I can take this anchor point and I can click right on that line. So when I hold my Option key, I click, it converts it right back into a straight line. Now here it's a straight line, and I need to go curved. So I can actually click right on that line and drag out an anchor point. Click and drag up. If I click back on the point, it deletes that second half of that handlebar, so I can go back into a straight line. And if I'm going from a straight line to a curved line, I can click off that anchor point and just drag. I'm not holding any keys, just hovering over it. I'm dragging up, and then I can convert and create my finished line. And then I can go in and fine tune my points, my handlebars, all that. Now let's try that again without the training wheels. So I know if I got a curve, I need to click and drag. So I'll click and drag to get my line, and now it's great. Now I know that I don't want this little curve, so here I'm gonna click back just once to remove that second half of that handlebar. Notice the top one's still there. I can still modify that, but now I got a straight line to go back to this point. Now, because I have a straight line here and I want this thing to be curved, I'll click and drag down. I'll click and drag up. Looks great. I can click back to this point so that I don't have that curve, so I can get that straight line. And then just repeating that process again. I'm clicking and dragging up. I'm clicking and dragging down. And then I can go back to my direct select tool and fine tune. Does that make sense? Really what you're seeing are just kind of that one keyboard modifier. Using that Option key. The only other one you might use is the Shift key to make sure you have straight lines or 45-degree angles. That's nothing we really need to worry about too much right now. The big idea is that we know we click once for straight lines, we click and drag for curved lines, and then we can use that Option key to modify points, or clicking back on points to change from curved to straight lines. So those basic operations on that, when you're looking at this whole thing, this doesn't seem like it's anything too groundbreaking, but now that you've kind of gotten a look at this, this is really the core of what you're going to be doing whenever you trace or create a new object. Now, obviously, I like you guys to start with tracing just because it gives you a little bit more familiarity with it, and it's just kind of getting you some reps on it. So now that we know how the basics of this works, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop and save this thing. I'm going to throw this on my desktop. And because there's multiple artboards, I can save this thing as a PDF. Email to me, throw it back on my desktop. Save it off to the PDF just so I can sell the different artboards. All right, cool. So that one's done. And let's jump into that main lesson 7 start file now. So now we've kind of run through some practice on the basics of those. What we're going to do next is we're going to take a look at this swamping like weird. Close this. I just saved it. So it's funky with my Illustrator right now. Okay, that is what our start file should look like. Now, one other thing about your start file, you want to check your layers panel. There is some other stuff here. We're going to be working on this wing layer, but notice that there's some other stuff. So like the way the head is, there's artwork, there's this template layer that we can turn on and off, and there's also a background layer. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw this, all our art is going to go on this wing layer as we do our tracing, and then we'll turn on all the other stuff to kind of wrap it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of zoom in a little bit here and get a sense of what it is that I'm tracing. So you can see there's kind of like those training wheels we talked about, they're on here, and it's kind of a good way to walk through this. But if I take a look at my pen tool before I trace or draw anything, I kind of want to get a sense of like the shape and how it's all going to look. Now you'll notice when I click on the pen tool, see how my icon looks? It's got like that pencil with like the do not kind of cross symbol on it. You ever see that? Make sure you're going into your layers and paying attention to what layer you're working on. If I click on the visibility for this wing, I don't want to be on this wing layer. I'm going to draw on the artwork layer. So make sure that you go into your layers panel and select the correct layer to go on. I'm going to put all my art on my artwork layer. Now, if I take a look at this, it looks like I'm just going to kind of follow the connected dots alphabetically all the way across. So it looks like I've got a curved line, a converted line, straight lines, kind of comes back around and converts. So I'm going to kind of follow like this nice big like swooping shape, but I'm going to start on point A, and I'm going to click and just drag out a little bit just to give myself a little bit of curvature. Same thing here. I'm just going to drag up. Now, remember, if I go this direction, I don't want my curve to come up this way. I want kind of like a sharp point on this feather. So what I'm going to do is, just like we did before, I'll hold my Option key and click. I'll just drag it down a little bit. Now that looks good. Now, same thing here. I'm going to drag this out, and I'm going to Option click that little bit of a handlebar just so that it kind of comes back out this way as well. Now, if I want this to be a straight line, remember, I go back and I just click once on this point to delete that anchor, and now it's going to give me a straight line. And then again, I have my nice straight line, the back of the wing. But here, I need to add a curvature here from going point E to point F. So I can just click right on that anchor point and drag up, and that's going to give me a curve for the second part of my line. So I can click and drag up to F, click and drag down to G, and that's giving me a nice even curve. As I'm drawing, I'm noticing that my art is overlapping. I never change this, so I'm going to make sure I set my fill to white, or to my fill to nothing, and my stroke to black. So coming back to this, now it's giving me this big curve. Remember, if I click back on this point, now it'll convert that right out into a straight line. And then again, now I need to add a curve. I can click back up, drag up. Now it's giving me that curvature again. So now I can click down, click up. It's giving me a nice curve here. If this looks a little off, I'm not going to worry about it right now. I'm going to go back and fix that afterwards in the ballpark. And then I'll just kind of click and drag, pull out until it matches. Now it's looking pretty good. It's probably off in a few spots. So if I want to go back in now, I can fine tune and I can adjust these paths so they're a little bit closer. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. We just want it in the ballpark. So like here on this one, I can pull this anchor point down a little bit and adjust. But overall, I think that looks really good. So now what I can do in my layers, now that I have it all drawn out, turn on my wing, turn on my background, turn off my template. Here if I wanted to. Now I can go back in on my artwork, and I'll fill this with white. And now it's following all that. So that's really, like, it seems like it's a pretty straightforward exercise once we get into the actual lesson, that the practice a little bit more. But you can see that it really does make a difference going through that practice piece first, so that you can see kind of converting through it. So does that make sense as far as how you're going to take those practice pieces and then apply it onto the actual lesson file? All right, so what I want to do next is I want to save this thing, and I want to take a look at the practice project. So stop and do a save as command. And again, I'm going to save this thing off onto my desktop. You guys can save these as PDFs if it makes it a little bit easier for you, whatever you think works better. Save it as a PDF. So now I've got PDFs of both the practice file and the start file. That's what you guys will be emailing me. And then the last thing that we're going to take a look at is the extension project. So let me jump into that. Wrong one. Go. All right, and then the last thing we're going to do is this pen tool tracing project. So again, I have a little video. I'm going to demo all this stuff. You'll see kind of the overall idea of it, but so is a little reference point of just kind of different ways to do tracing. But big idea here is you're going to download the zip file. All right, so in this tracing practice folder, there is a tracing practice file. Basically what it is a bunch of logos. So what you're going to do is you're going to trace these logos, you're going to apply color to them, you're going to group them all together, and you're going to slide them off to the right here. So what I'm going to do is, if you take a look, there's kind of a bunch of different ones. What I'm going to do is I'm going to demo the Nike one, just so it's kind of the best version of straight lines, curved lines, and curved points. But you can see, as you're looking at these, just different ways in them. Some of them are going to be more complex, some of them will be less. The Starbucks one, Just get as far as you can. Now, if you do see shapes in these things that make sense to use a shape tool, don't try and draw a perfect circle with a pen tool. It doesn't make sense. You have a tool that'll do that. So anytime you see circles like the rings on this, or the counters, or the circles on the A's or D's in Adidas, or even if you wanted to do like the boxes, like the point or the line, anytime that you see a that it makes sense to use a shape tool, use a shape tool for it. What I'm going to focus on now is just using pen tool for kind of like custom shapes. So zoom in on this. So what I'm going to do is this. Now, as far as process goes for this, what I generally recommend as a workflow, first thing I'm going to do is just kind of look at the whole thing first. Don't just start clicking. Start thinking about, okay, the N is separate, the I is separate, the K, the E, and the swoosh all connect together. And then it looks like I got this midpoint that I'm going to have to cover up too, or punch out, or just make it as a white box. So that's first step, is understanding what I need to trace. You guys don't need to worry about the registered trademark logos. Now, second thing I want to do is set my tracing. I want to set my fill to none, and I want to set my color to just something bright. So, got everything I need, my tool's ready to go, so I'm just going to get started here. Now, I know that this is a very connected dots operation for my N and my I, and I'll just get it in the ballpark. If I need to fine tune it later, I will. I'm not going to worry about getting perfect. The big idea is that on the top and bottom points, if I'm snapping to those, now it gives me reference points for when I draw the rest of my pieces. So then it'll kind of start snapping them all together and giving me some nice consistency with it. So I can see I'm a little off on that, but no big deal. Now, this K, the E, and the swoosh, this is all connected. So what I'm going to have to do is just kind of pay attention to my edge lines. Again, so far this is all just clicking from point to point because they've all been straight lines. Now when I get here, I'm not going to connect all this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to build this as all one big piece. So I'm going to click down to here, and it looks like I need to put a little bit of curve on this thing. So I'm going to just drag out a little bit, and I'm going to come to about halfway of the inside of the swoosh. I'm going to drag up a little bit, and it looks like this line's a little bit off, so I'll option click. I'm going to bring my handlebar just a little bit here. And it looks like it's not quite there, but I think if I adjust this handlebar a little, it gets a little bit closer. Now, I'm clicking once because I want to reset down to a straight line, and I'm going to click and drag out just like we did before. I want my new curve to go in that direction. So generally when I'm doing like covering big areas, the fewer points you have, the better. It tends to give you a more smooth looking line. So I'm just going to try and do this in maybe 3 points. So I think that's pretty close. I'm going to go into a straight run here, so I'm going to click on this to deselect it. I'll click back here to here, and I'm just going to run through the rest of the logo because these are all just straight lines now. Remember, as you're drawing these things, you always have to start and finish at the same point. So as you're going through, try to keep everything as straight as I can, and then get back to that. There we go. Now, shape's done. It's not perfect, but I know that I can come in with my tools and adjust this a little bit. Maybe I bring in my points a little bit. This one might be like a little intense. I'm bringing this handlebar a little. There we go. It's getting pretty close. And again, you can kind of just play with these points, whether it's where the anchor point is, if you're going to grab the whole line, or if you're going to grab individual points on it, and you can kind of just massage those into place. Grab my note, pull it over here. If that's looking good. These are a little off. I'm not going to worry about it too much. Now, the only last thing I want to pay attention to, though, is this inside point. I'm just going to make sure that I connect this inner piece, because remember, the last step when you're done here is you're going to need to color everything and group it so that you can slide off to the side. So now what I'm going to do is I got everything. I'm going to select the whole thing. I'm going to apply a color to this. So for my inner color, I'll just do like an orange with a purple overlay. And here on this inner piece, I'm going to make sure I set my center. I can either knock this out or I'm just going to set it to white. But now I got everything done. I'm going to select the whole thing and group it. Zoom out, and once it's grouped, I'll slide it over here. And now I got one of the 6 finished. So that's really the process for this. So you can see like the lesson isn't super intense. It's really a lot more about giving you guys time to work on the tracing part. Are there any questions on the tracing part of the extension project? So again, like before, when you're done, you can save this as a PDF or a JPEG, and then when you're done, you'll email me your practice file, your start file, and your extension project, and that'll all be due by the end of the day next week. And then next week for class, I'm not going to be available for like an actual in-person lecture. What I'm going to do is I'm going to record a demo, and I'll just have that thing posted for you earlier in the week so you guys can jump ahead and take a look at that and then ask questions. Anything jumping out, you guys? Julius, you had a question? All right, so I'm going to kill the recording. I'll have this posted in just a minute. And oh, for the center on the Adidas logo, the center parts here, just like how I did that triangle and I filled it with white, you can do the same thing there. And you don't even need to worry about tracing it. You can even see, like, if I grab my ellipse tool and I just drag out, I'll hold my shift key to make a perfect circle, and I can just kind of snap it in there. And the other part too is it's going to be the same size on all of them, so it's kind of a work smarter, not harder. I can even use my option key and make duplicates of that and just slide it over. Just like that. Anything else jumping out, you guys? All right, so I will be around hanging out if you guys have questions, if you want any feedback from me, you got anything that you want to see. Again, and good luck with this. Take your time, be patient. Generally, what I recommend doing is I do the practice and the swan tracing parts, and maybe one or two of these, and then take a break. Give yourself a little bit of time, let it sink in, come back to it. Generally, breaking this up into like 2 or 3 sittings is kind of the best way to just make sure that you don't fry your brain on it. But really, the big idea and why I have you guys why I kind of drill you guys on this is that it just gives you a lot more kind of reps on it, and just really helps build your confidence with the tool quickly. And as far as the color, yeah, you can make those things any color, any design, patterns, gradients, whatever you want to do with them, it's totally up to you. Just want to make sure that you have them saved and grouped off to the side just so I can see what your version looks like.